Snyder.
Chapter 10. Retreat. Alex Vossel, Eden Island, 2018. The bright blue water was dulled by my sunglasses as I looked out over the endless ocean. 6 ice cubes, 4 ounces of mango rum, 4 ounces club soda, and a slice of lime rested in a tall glass beside me. 3 wood beach chairs sat an inch deep in white sand. Clear skies stretched out over gentle waves that glided softly onto the shore. My wife, Hannah, lay comfortably next to me in one of her many bikinis, her perfect 28-year-old body lightly baking in the sun. I picked up my beverage, feeling its cool condensation wet my palm. My son, Desmond, played in the water while one of his nannies kept watch. And I thought to myself, how perfect our last day in this dreadful world had been. I thought to myself how proud and relieved I was to have made my escape and realized my vision. I kept quiet, of course, but on the inside, my heart pounded victorious. Today, I would no longer change history. Today, I would remake it. We had flown out of London within hours of my departure from Eden Corporation. Nathan's concerned attempt to patch things up still itching in my mind. Our destination and home for the foreseeable future was my private island located in between Taiwan and the Philippines. I had purchased it just over 10 years ago, and it had required almost as much time to reach completion. It was my self-designed utopia, built for our family vacations and our eventual retreat, complete with an Olympic-sized indoor pool, gymnasium, movie theater, salon, spa, all-organic farm, state-of-the-art laboratory, 2,600 square foot mansion, bomb shelter, sewage treatment plant, detention area, and a tiny village to house my near 60 staff members employed to maintain the island. I could now spend the rest of my life far away from the life I'd had. Because when my jet took off and I watched London disappear over the horizon, a strange thing happened inside of me. I felt the calming relief of a life less significant. I felt pure elation and joy as the fears and uncertainty that had accompanied my work melted away. I had succeeded. At long last, my dreams were no longer dreams. And as I looked out on the ocean, living blissfully in the moment, I realized that it was the only time since the death of my first wife that I had felt completely happy. I finished my drink and turned to address Hannah. He seems happy, doesn't he? Hannah looked to the water, watching Desmond jump in the air and crash into a wave. Very. I was worried he wouldn't adjust well, I admitted, reaching over to reposition the beach umbrella that saved me from tanning alongside my wife. It would have been difficult for me to change so much of my life at his age. Well, he's a very accommodating young man, and we're very lucky parents for that. I just wish there were more kids for him to play with, I continued, seeing one of my bodyguards leave the beachside hut and head in our direction. Every time that the cleaning woman brings her daughter to visit, I feel like she's only there so that I'll give her mother a raise. Or maybe it's because Desmond has the only video game console on the island. Either way, we're getting used. Well, get used to it, she joked, turning to lie on her stomach as the guard came within a few meters of us, trained not to look at my wife or what she tried to show off. "Sir, you'd asked me to notify you," the guard stated, equally as well trained not to mention business in front of my wife. I nodded and stood up from my chair. "Have the nanny bring him to the theater for dinner. I think it would be good to watch a movie while we eat," I instructed Hannah. I then turned to walk the short distance from the beach to the mansion. I have a fixation with open spaces. I believe that people weren't meant to be confined in cluttered homes and office buildings or cubicles. I believe that the people who deserve to be alive were made to roam the earth as if it were theirs alone. So, naturally, when designing the home we would occupy on my island, I put a great deal of consideration into how much space could be maintained without forfeiting security or functionality. The sniper towers on the roof saved me the trouble of having multiple armed guards at the doors. The passageways to the bomb shelter were concealed, as cliché as it might seem, behind bookshelves and cabinets. And most importantly, my laboratory, the central hub of my daily activities, while seemingly isolated and invisible to anyone unfamiliar with the layout of the home, was easily accessible for all crises, both unforeseen and otherwise. I entered the lab, pausing momentarily to allow the air compressor to remove all scraps of sand and dust from my person. Then, with eager anticipation, I made my way to the mainframe, the last and greatest vestige from my time at EdenCorp. This computer, and more importantly, the network of associated programs that it controlled, was conceived of in a time of great sorrow. Like many brilliant men, my most profound inspiration was born in the ashes of my dreams, standing at the side of my first wife, Eden, alone after our guests had finally left me to grieve in silence. I took her cold, pale hand in mine and allowed myself to cry. I allowed myself to hate and rage as if it were not her day of judgment but my own. I was livid at the world around me, at a society that sanctioned the breeding of criminals in lowly slums, raised to strike down the innocent, hard-working people in this world, to strike down my wife, use her like a toy, and then squeeze the life from her. I was livid that the only justice this world had to show was to send those responsible for such unspeakable crimes to rot comfortably in a cell, as if the loss of their time was some sort of consolation for all that they had done. I was devastated by the reality of mankind and the unyielding indifference of self-proclaimed good people. But more than the pain I felt and the sorrow that consumed me in that moment, for the first time in my life, I was free of my moral inhibitions. I was free of my shadow conscience that had been conditioned to follow me like a naive pup, trained to swallow the bad along with the good as if nothing could be done about it. In that moment of sorrow, I understood the greater purpose of my pain. And since that day, I have worked tirelessly in the name of reform. I gently pulled my favorite antique office chair, which I had retrofitted with wheels and the ability to recline, away from my computer console. The monitor powered on, followed by a larger central screen that stood nearly as tall as myself, just in front of the console I worked on, though old school in my approach to utilizing computers by stubbornly insisting on continuing to use a keyboard and mouse. I was quite proficient with code and concept, devising long prior to the original mainframe's design a clone console that could discreetly monitor and intervene with the original mainframe's programming without anyone other than the clone's operator being made aware. Of course, the original console was still safe back in London under the supervision of my once good friend Nathan, and but for my far superior clone of Eden Corp's mainframe, I could not have brought myself to either leave the company or attempt to persuade those within it to overlook the nature of my actions. I stretched my hands over the keyboard, savoring the moment. However, as I did so, my mind drifted back once more. Perhaps given time and resources enough, Nathan could understand the depths of all the peculiar things I'd done in my final months with him. Perhaps given time, he might even understand the part of myself that I had kept from him and why. But as I took a long, slow breath, locked in pensive deliberation, I realized that my lingering nostalgia, both of my late wife and of Nathan, was the final tribute to the momentous task that I was about to realize: the rebirth of the human race, the opportunity to grant those worthy of life the positions of privilege and praise that they deserve, the chance to cleanse the filth of a world built on generations of misled, ignorant commoners and the sentimental hogwash of those who so foolishly believed anything short of a miracle could change them. In the world I would build, only the strong would survive. But first, everyone else had to die.